So excited to have you here on my channel.
I think software engineers especially should be cold emailing. So little downside, so much upside. I know in dating and everything they say don't double text, right? Don't double text. Look, this is business.
In Silicon Valley, as a software engineer, can you walk me through how to, write that cold email?
Look, in Silicon Valley, everyone's hiring all the time. People are on their emails all the time.
How about super quickly we'll actually draft out
Sure.
what that email would look like?
Sure.
So I guess we'll start with the subject line, right? Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you remember, back in 2013, I actually received my first software engineering internship at Yelp through a cold email on LinkedIn. I cold emailed a recruiter. And today I actually have a very special guest here on my channel, Nick Singh, who is actually a LinkedIn influencer who wrote one of his guides is 7 tips on how to cold email yourself to a dream job. And it specifically is catered towards software engineers. And he himself cold emailed himself to an interview at Airbnb and Snapchat, and I'll link that guide below in the description. But essentially, he's gonna teach us a little more about how to cold email to pretty much anything we want. So if you're curious how this goes and how this works, stay tuned. Nick, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm super excited. I love cold emailing. It helped me a lot, and I'm hoping you can share some amazing tips.
I'm glad to be here. I think software engineers especially should be cold emailing. So little downside, so much upside. So I'm very excited to talk to you a little bit more about why cold emailing is so awesome and some ways to get better at it.
I'm really curious, why do you think cold emailing works in the first place?
Look, in Silicon Valley, everyone's hiring all the time. People are on their emails all the time. And believe it or not, people want to hear, even if they're strangers, they want to hear from those people if they have something they can offer. So if you think you can add value to a company or a person, go for it. Go send them a cold email. You have so little to lose with so much upside.
How did you personally learn how to cold email?
I learned how to cold email just through circumstances. Back in 2014, I was a student at the University of Virginia, and I had some projects.
It's like UVA or something like that?
Yeah, UVA, University of Virginia. And I had some cool projects under my belt, but I really had a tough time breaking into Silicon Valley. So I took matters into my own hand and sent a lot of cold emails to software engineering recruiters. And that's actually how I got interviews at Uber and Airbnb, as well as my current job today at Safegraph, is because I cold emailed our CEO.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I actually, as I shared in the beginning of the video, I have a similar story with, back in the day when I was trying to break also into Silicon Valley. So that really resonates. And that's why I'm also so excited to have you here on my channel, because back then I was hustling so much and cold emailing so many people. And one of the people that I cold emailed was that recruiter at Yelp, a Yelp recruiter, and I cold emailed them on LinkedIn. And that actually landed me an interview first, and then essentially it also got me that first software engineering internship in Silicon Valley. So
success stories are out there everywhere. Back in 2010, Travis Kalanick actually tweeted out that he was looking for someone who had product management and biz dev skills. Ryan Graves tweeted back at him. They emailed, they didn't know each other. Now he's a billionaire after the Uber IPO. Success stories are everywhere at every level.
Yeah, right. I remember reading that story. Essentially, he just responded to the tweet, and actually this guy, Ryan Graves, he was the first put CEO to Uber in like 2010 until Travis Kalanick replaced him.
Something like that, yeah. It's success stories are out there everywhere, and as long as you feel you can add value to a company, you should go and email them and offer up your services, for sure.
How about we imagine that it's 2013 again, I have no software engineer. Actually, I'm like just getting software engineering experience, and I want to get an internship in Silicon Valley as a software engineer. Can you walk me through how to, write that cold email?
Sure. So back in 2013, as I understand, you were at the University of Waterloo.
Yeah,
so that's a
right.
great school and known for their engineering program. So every subject line should have U Waterloo engineer.
Okay.
If I remember,
What if I wasn't in U Waterloo though?
If you weren't, then don't lead with that. Don't lead with that you're a college student or don't lead with your college. Go lead with whatever is your strongest. So often, because the University of Virginia is not super well known out on the West Coast, I would just lead with the fact that I was an ex-Microsoft intern.
Right.
I wouldn't
so
say
basically like strong subject lines.
Subject lines are super important. So that's one of the tips I'd give to you. Second of all, I know you were a chemical engineer.
That's right.
Well, just call yourself an engineer.
That's
Don't
true,
need to
yeah.
qualify and downgrade yourself and make it tougher for yourself.
Right.
Later on, it'll come up, hey, you know what, I code in my free time, but I'm not really studying software engineering. That's totally okay.
Let's make it more difficult. What if I wasn't studying engineering? I know a lot of people in my audience, they want to be software engineers, but let's say they're studying history.
Sure. I would say that cold emailing does work best when you have good content to put forth. I think if you don't have that initial good content, it definitely can be tougher. One thing I would say is if you don't really have academic credentials that say you know how to code, but you have a side project or two, that works wonders when you can link to a side project you've done that's public. And I think the key word here—
Side projects, I told you guys before in videos, super important, especially for software engineering.
For sure. So, and linking to a side project that's published online is huge because there's so many people who have class projects or school projects that weren't published anywhere. But if you can put a link to your GitHub repo or a link to the App Store, you are miles ahead of anyone else cold emailing. And at that point, it doesn't even matter what school you went to, what you're studying. If you have an app on the App Store you can link to, or a website that you made, you're already much more ahead than other people who just write empty words like, oh, I love software engineering and have no projects to back it up.
Yeah. Okay, so that would be another tip. Anything else that I should include?
I would say the biggest things, and I talk more about this in my article about the 7 tips I have for cold emailing, but the 2 biggest ones—
And the article is going to be linked, guys, below in the description. Definitely check it out. It's completely free, right?
Yeah, completely free. I send it out to my newsletter, which reaches about 13,000 people today.
Nice.
Content,
that LinkedIn influence.
Yeah, so I'll link to that as well, but I like to send guides about different technical career stuff, as well as life in Silicon Valley and information about startups. So one of the things I did write was about cold emailing, 7 tips. I'll give you 2 real quick. One is to keep it short and concise and lead with your best stuff. People tend to ramble a lot, and often you're emailing someone who has very little time and who's very important. They appreciate brevity. So keep it short. That's tip number 1. And I would say the second most important tip out of the 7 I give is follow up 3 times. You wouldn't believe how many opportunities I've gotten just from being persistent. I know in dating and everything they say don't double text, right? Don't double text. Look, this is business. People are busy. People ignore emails. They get emails all the time. It's okay to follow up 3, maybe even 4 times. And this is something I want to make sure software engineers and technical people in the audience understand. See, in my current job, I used to be a software engineer, but in my current job in sales and marketing, this is totally the norm. People do very well in sales by following up 3 or 4 times. But software engineers, they tend to maybe feel a little weird about that. Hey,
uncomfortable.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's totally a norm in the business world, and I want to let software engineers and other technical people know. Following up on a cold email 3 or 4 times, totally normal, totally helpful, and has helped drive some really cool opportunities in my own personal life.
And because we tapped into one of the mistakes, would you say there is anything else that people tend to make as a mistake in their cold emailing?
I would say my tips are also the flip side of making a mistake. So the mistakes are going too long, not following up enough, not having a crisp subject line. So my tips are how to actually improve all of those 3 things.
And if you guys remember at the beginning, my email to the Yelp recruiter, it did work, but it was pretty long. So I guess that was like outside of the norm.
That's true, right? And we're just trying to optimize it. Already, if you cold email someone, you're showing more initiative than most people. That's what you got to understand.
That's very true.
So even if you don't follow these rules, you make mistakes.
You're still ahead of the curve, right?
You're still ahead of the curve, especially if you make a personal connection to that company or to that person. You're already ahead of the curve because students aren't taking the initiative. They're waiting to be found. They're waiting at their career fair. But I learned from my own career when the types of companies in Silicon Valley weren't coming to my college's career fair. I learned this is the way to do it, and that's how I got good at it.
How about super quickly we'll actually draft out what that email would look like?
Sure.
So I guess we'll start with a subject line, right? So subject line, I guess like you Waterloo engineer, looking interested
in Uber
growth, right?
Sure.
Or Uber Android.
Uber Android, because your background was
Android, yeah.
Android back then, and you had an Android project, and that's a great way to lead into a company. Whatever limited experience you have, use that to your advantage.
Right.
To make the best kind of connection to that company. So.
Okay. Hi, Eli. I'm a U Waterloo engineer. Super interested.
Sure. So you would want to give first like a connection point, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So you might want to say like, what prompted this email, right? You should make a connection.
So maybe like I recently read Uber's blog post about new way of tracking driver's location on the Android app.
Exactly. Awesome. You can use their press releases, or you can use something personal with the recruiter if you have a common city or college or any other personal point. It's great to bring in that personal connection as well as show some familiarity with the company itself and their product lines.
So like, and then I can go, I'm a U-Waterloo engineer, super interested.
And you'd want to say, I'm a U-Waterloo engineer with some Android experience, or
nice.
I love...
With some Android experience.
And when you say Android experience, it's super important to maybe link to your Android project you have, ideally on the Play Store, but if not on GitHub or some other landing page.
Right.
Because even just having the link, even if it's never clicked, already shows the person on the other end, oh, this person's backing up what they're saying.
Yeah.
Words like, oh, I'm super passionate or I've done a lot don't mean much. But when you can hyperlink to, here's my Android experience, even if they don't click it, that's already showing a sign that you have something to back it up with.
Right. Okay. Android experience, very interested in software engineering internship. Oh my God. Engineering internship opportunities.
Yeah.
On Uber's Android team.
Yeah.
Would love to start the interviewing process. Thank you.
Yeah, that's perfect. Awesome. That's a perfect first email. You kept it short. You asked for what you wanted. You didn't ask for coffee. You didn't ask for an overview of the recruiting process. You asked for what you wanted. You wanted an interview. You gave a reason of why you're familiar with the company.
Yeah.
If we were to improve it with more time, if you had another project or another angle, it's okay to add an extra sentence in the beginning to say, I've done Android as well as I love growth. And I know Uber has a great growth team as well as is a mobile first company with a lot of Android engineering experience. So it's great to add in more, but let's say this is all you've got. I think you're already in the top because most people don't take the initiative. Most people ramble and put random things. You've already just gotten pretty far with this simple email.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Sweet, I got my email. You guys can follow the same template and get hopefully a response.
Exactly, and in my link for the 7 cold emailing tips, I have some of the real emails I've sent out to real companies and real recruiters, which you can use as templates.
Awesome, well, thank you so much for joining me today, Nick. This was super useful. I learned something. I hope my audience, you guys have learned something. Thank you for your time. You guys should check out Nick and his LinkedIn newsletter. It's awesome, lots of valuable tidbits. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. You guys don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel down below. Lots of useful content coming your way. And I hope, as always, you have a wonderful day, and you, Nick, have a wonderful day, and bye for now.
See ya.